Hello, welcome back. This cancel and cancel. Okay. So I'm Nicolas Cannasse, in case you don't know me. Together with Simon
I'm just gonna have
Haxe Foundation, and I was the original author of the Haxe programming language. And I always seen Haxe as the reason why I created a programming language is I like to control my toolchain. I like to be able to make my work, because my main work is creating games, and it's not writing compilers. Writing compilers is just a way for me to be able to write games more efficiently, and then I like to have customized my framework and the way things run and things are done, and over the years we came out at Shiro. It's been 10 years we started the company, and we have been slowly building tools to work on our games. And now we have something we call Shiro Games Technology Stack, which actually I wrote a little article back on some time ago, like 2 years ago, on 2.5 on the X blog, and it's still up to date. So what I will do today is I will go through the article and show you the actual code behind it, and maybe give more explanations, because what is writing is more a sum up of things, and I think by showing you, like interacting with the technology, you can see much better how it works, and maybe it raises also some questions and that I might be able to answer, hopefully. This is the kind of game we are making strategy game and different kind of games, but mostly in 3D. So it's like as Tom was saying in the previous talks, these are quite graphics intensive, and they require a lot of tools. So here is all of our stack shown is a single graph. So we have the lower native code in green. Then we have also the language level in orange is Haxe, and in blue we have all the libraries and all the tools we are using to make our games. So at the very low level you have Ashling virtual machine, which is actually here on ashling.x.org, and you can download it. So Ashling is a small virtual machine. It's actually a small piece of code that does does run your output. So what you can do is you can compile with Haxe your Xcode into a .hl file, which is a binary file containing bytecode, and then you can run it using this command. And this will run the thing in real time. So, and one other way to do this, we have something called dual compilation, is that we have a way to actually output C code with exactly same output, so it's still the HL target with exactly the same APIs and exactly the same semantics. But instead of outputting a bytecode file that gets JIT at runtime, so translated into assembler in memory at runtime, you can also output C code and compile it with GCC to get like a static code. This is slower for daily basis, because it will require you to wait for the C compiler to compile everything, but it produces much more efficient binaries. But still, what we show today, like the Dune running and all our games running on PC, they are still running with a JIT version, which is very fast and allow us to get all the benchmarks, all the performances, even crashes, or catch all these kind of things. Whereas in the C code, sometimes you don't get all this information. And what we do on the other end is that when we need a lot of performances, or when we can't do JIT, for example, on consoles, on Nintendo Switch or PlayStation or Xbox, we are compiling to C and running into the. And the thing is that the C is just a translation of all the virtual machine opcodes into C. So it's not really nice to read, but on the other hand, we guarantee this way that the C that is output is exactly the same, guaranteed to run exactly the same as you would with your bytecode. So when we make a game that works on PC with a gamepad, we just put on the console and it works exactly the same. So we don't have to do a port to port our code on different platforms. So that's for the virtual machine. So so for the JIT, it's only, right now we actually started deprecating the 32-bit support, so it's mostly 64 Intel kind of, or AMD 64 support. We don't have ARM support yet for the JIT, so you need to go to emulators for that, for these kind of things, yeah. And the JIT, the virtual machine, comes with several also libraries, such as SDL to access OpenGL game controllers, and we have also UI library for some things, a format library that allows you to do some JPEG decoding, compression, and a lot of libraries. So, and we have also platform native API, such as accessing Steam API for publishing game on Steam, accessing MongoDB API or MySQL. I mean, it can be different things. We have different libraries. And yes, they are right in the article, so you can read that later. And we have some tools that come with the virtual machine. We have the debugger. So here, for instance, is a code from Wartails, and I can open the code and go somewhere like maybe in the main code. It's just main entry point. We can go around here quickly, and I can maybe function main here, and I can pause here and start. And it will compile and run. So here I'm using a bigger font, so you can see well what's happening. So it takes some time to build because Wartail is very big, but still not that big. Yeah, and here you can see you have the arguments, you have all your statics with many things, and you can step in to get all the things you could do in debugger. Here you say is debugger got through because we are running through the debugger, and then we have different things here. And yeah, so we have a debugger. We have a profiler that Tom was showing before. We also memory profile API that's still not documented, but that's what Tom was showing before. All the dump about what you allocate or what kind of memory is used. And you can use Insight or similar tools to profile your performances. So, the programming language is Haxe, of course. So I will go through this. And so now we are going into the actual libraries we are using. So all the libraries, they are all written in Haxe, and they are all doing many different things. The first one is ips.io is a web, you can see on the website. It's a cross-platform graphics API. So it runs right now on several platforms. It runs with Ashlink, or it runs with JavaScript. And with JavaScript, we support both WebGL, WebGL2, and we are starting to work on WebGPU. We will have it maybe soon. And on Ashlink, we support OpenGL, DirectX, and Switch, PS4, and Xbox. And we are working on a new console. And of course, Android and iOS as well. So we can actually publish, like once you write your code in Haxe and IPS, you can actually publish for all these things. And so, yeah, there are actually samples for IPS. You can see like how it works. So it's a scene base. So you create an application. Then you have you can create some objects, H2D objects. Then you load some resources, you display them, and you have something working. So we have a lot of, and we have this for 3D as well, with cube and lighting and everything, and shadows. So it's a quite complete framework when you you can browse through the sample to see all what you can do with a framework. Here are some things when you can see like gradients, and here is some actually done using some shaders, I guess. No, it's doing just adjust color, which is already something, some shaders which is already used by the thing. I think we have shadows. Yeah, shadows. So here you can see those shadows working, and you can change a lot of things about the quality or the radius of the shadows, or many different things, or the power, if it's too, yeah. So a lot of examples to learn a bit about IPS. And the way IPS is actually designed is not to be like an engine like Unreal or Unity, when you have one way to do things and everything is well integrated into this. It's more like you have a set of tools. You have, of course, a 2D scene, a 3D scene, but the whole rendering, the whole like materials, everything that's necessary can be actually customize and actually turn into your own engine for your game. So you can use IPS as it, and you will get if you few lines, you can get a PBR rendering and have all the modern like rendering you can have on the engine, on par with what you can get on Unreal. I mean, not on the tooling side, but on more on the rendering side. But then, if you want to actually tweak things, you can actually change everything in the engine and create your own custom renderer. And you don't have like a main renderer. You have more like it can be actually repurposed and customized. So it's really important that you can for us, because, for instance, Northgard. It's the oldest game we're still maintaining. We have been releasing in 2017, so we've been updating it for 6 years now, and we're still running IPS from the trunk, from the master, from the actual the main branch. So it means that it's still running on par with the latest games we are doing. So we have this framework that allows customize and have a lot of different games running on it. Can be 2D, can be 3D games, etc. Yep. So you can read more on the article later. Then we have IDE. IDE it comes from IPS IDE, but we call it IDE. It's somehow like a bit like Unity or things we use to edit our data. So, for instance, I will go open Wartels here. Which just shows this later. Maybe this one is interesting. Sometimes it takes some time to load because on this PC we haven't yet compressed all the texture. I should have already that. So here, and I think we're done. Yeah. So here on Wartels we have this lot of different, and it's a bit slow because of, I guess, because we were not focused. So here we have all this scene. With a lot of different 3D objects and a lot of different background. You have the sawmill, and you have the sounds, you have vegetations, like a lot of things that are put, and then you have also these different sounds, and we have also this sawmill, this particular one that actually is the same. We're referencing the sawmill, so we're placing the sawmill, and then we're adding characters, and then our characters. We have here, and we can have all our data about who is this, the whole dialogues, which are in French, but they are translated later to English, the scripting, and in the script system, you can actually type things and get completion and typing. So if I do this equal plus plus, it will complain about flow. I'm in English keyboard. Wow. Okay. It will complain. Where was this again? Okay. Yeah. No. I'm on caps lock. Okay. Actually, I'm on caps lock. Yeah. And so it's to say bool should be hint. So it's a small compiler kind of type checker at least that gives you things. So yeah. So this is our middleware that does a lot of things for us. I can actually click somewhere else. Yeah, and so you can actually put objects here, move them around. Here I can control my NPC and move it around here, or rotate it so it's just my camera is locked on the object. But yeah, so you can do a lot of things about the scene or control where things are, the sound and everything. And so it allows us to develop to create our levels somehow, and to create all the content for the game. And it can also be used to display, for instance, this specific sawmill. We can use it here. That's the one we opened before. And then we can access to, let's say, vegetation. We have some trees here. And this tree, we can open it in a viewer and see how it's done, and what's the kind of, how many polygons it have, and what kind of rotation. And we can look at the texture. And the texture, we can display them here. And see also like the different maps that might be on this specific thing, and yeah, that's quite a complete framework when it comes to be able to see the assets and see how they are processed and how they are actually how they got into the game. So yeah, and And hide also allows to create, like I was saying that this NPC, it have all these things, like the dialogue and everything. And this is part of another tool. I think this is the next one. No, not yet, but I will skip directly to CastleDB here because I'm talking about it. CastleDB is not directly related to IPS. It doesn't need IPS to work. It's a database that you create is part of IDE right now. We have an old version that was standalone, but is no longer maintained. We are maintaining it only through IDE, but you can use it without IDE, without the whole IPS engine. So what you do is do database view here, and you can see a lot of things we're having. So for instance, we have a list of classes. So classes are, for instance, Swarmman. He has a weapon type of type sword. He has some equipment. And here you can see we have all the items on the game that are references. And items actually is another sheet. Is here you have all the currencies, the weapons here, the base weapons. So we have all these things that are in the X. So with the descriptions, and some of them can have skills, and you can go to the skill. And skill is again another tab with all the things, including all the script and everything. And when you look at this, you see all these massive investments to be able to build a tool such as this for a game, because you need to create all these things for all the different kind of data you need. But actually it's not, because what CastleDB is a generic database. So we didn't do anything special for what else for this database. What we do is we create, like I can create actually here, what can I do? Or I can do it here from here, database, view, why do I create a new cheat? Why I can't do that? Maybe there's too many of them. Well, I can do another project. I can create a new project. Let's go from scratch. I create a new directory here. Yep.
Let's just make a game. Let's go.
Yeah, let's go and make a game. No, we're just making the database for the game. The game can wait a bit. So we're getting a test here and database view. And here database. So we can create a new sheet and say like item. So this is all are for items. Then we have a unique identifier for item. Okay. So now we can insert some unique identifier saying sword 1 and then shield fire. Okay. And this has unique identifier. So if I try to answer another thing fire, it will be complained there is 2 of them. Okay. And then we can say, okay, this is it have a name because this is just an identifier, and it's some text that will be localizable. And here I can do like the sword for beginners. Okay. And everything like this I can do, like I can add then a skill, but I don't know yet what is a skill. So I create a new thing here. What I can't create a new thing here? Why is it locked? Usually there's a plus to create. Oh, I see here, Hatch it. Oh, I think it's the wrong place. Sheet name. So I'm trying to create a skill, and a skill again has a unique identifier. So ID, unique identifier, and I can say fireball. Okay, fireball, and I can actually add an icon for this, which is a tile here. Okay, I move the item on the left so we can see it first, and I select it at the display icon. And here I will just copy some thing from maybe Uland. Let's go. UI, I don't know, yeah, this or cursor. Yeah, this is good. Yeah. I do here, copy in the res folder. I copy my PNG, and here I select the PNG to as a display, and I will do with a 32 by 32. Yep, and here. So this is my icon for my skill. Okay, and here I can say, okay, a skill from my item is a reference to a skill here. Okay, and then say it's required. Required means it has to be set. But if I don't say required, it's empty. And for my shield fire, I say, oh, I have my skill fireball here. And that's it. So basically what you create here is data structures that are linked together. And of course, if I rename my fireball here into fireball, it's actually a nice ball now. Yeah, my item here get renames to iceball. And all of this is stored into a JSON. So if I look at the data I have from my here, I need to save it first. I think database. Why it's not saved? Oh yes, data CDB here. Test. Oh, it's in REST. Okay. Save REST. I have my data CDB here, and you edit with Notepad, and you can see here I have my item. This is the types, the columns, so the definitions. In my lines are ID sword on, ID shield fire, skill iceball, etc. I have all my data here, and here my skills. I have my iceball with an icon which is size 32 at this position. So pretty much it's a JSON file, so it's easy to merge, to edit for several people. And it allows you to create this wall like a database for different things. So of course you can do much more than that. You can insert scripting and configuration, and allows you to also use export from API export to be able to use your Haxe code as a scripting in the typing. So it's a lot of different things you can do with that. So, and yeah, that's CastleDB. And then there is other tools which is used on IPS, which is DomKit. DomKit is one of the difficult things when you do a game, especially the kind of game we are making, is UI. When you do UI, it's very difficult because you have to do all these components and all this complex layout. So I used to do HTML and CSS back in the days, and also I'm not a web developer, but I did use that a lot. And I like the way you can have some structure and then add some CSS on it, and it allows you to be able to separate a bit concerns. I will just run the game. And so we're starting waters in the debugger right now, but actually we could start it without debugger. And also we have all this user interface using similar things. So for instance, I will open the code in UI here, window, and let's say for instance, which one would be nice? The minimap maybe not the best, but there's not so much things here. But maybe like the REST confirm. REST confirm is good. Here you have a REST confirm window. So we're using this source. So it extends window, and window has this macro that processes the source for it. And then you have this REST confirm window with different components. Flow is a basic IPS component, saying it's basically like a div in you will have in HTML. And here has this custom text that you can inject things on it. And then we have some bitmap, some salary row, some elements, some buttons, and all of this is entirely defined here. And what I can do if I manage to start the game, which I think is still doing some textures, obviously. Does it? Oh, it's there. Maybe it's loading. I think the hard drive is really. It's moving forward. Yeah. I think I haven't run this computer for a long time, so we're throwing into there. I will show you in the game. It's easy to see what you can do once we get there. Almost. So basically, you can do the structure here, and you can define many components. So we have all these components at the UI comp, and basically when we reference bitmap here, or salary row can be in the same class, or it can be defined here in some kind of the components. So button, for instance, we have our own button class here, which extends element, and we have some P, which are properties. So push, for instance, can be set, and it can be set by code, or it can be set also through CSS. So this way you can actually, I'm almost done, leaving the place. Oh, this is a lot of people here. I'm leaving the place, and I will go in my camp. Which may take some to load because it's first time. And so I will keep explaining here. So here, for instance, we have this weight all players, we can be set. And then we have the CSS here, let's say res, UI, styles. So we are using less, but less give us all this extra way to be able to design things. And if I go on button, I guess it's there. No, it's not in common. I mean common. I always wanted to, but component. Yeah, button. I have this default from my button. So how does my button behavior happens to do when it's pushed, when it's disabled, when I have an icon inside. So all these kind of different things are properties that you can have that are bound to IPS components. So here's my camp, and if I want to rest, oh, it's still loading. No, I'm there. Okay. I see the shadows here, and here we have the rest window at last. So this rest window is actually the one that we have in our source here, rest confirm. Actually, this is only the confirm. This is in the rest. Actually, this one, maybe it's another one. And here I can inspect things. So I use a middle click button, and I can inspect things, and I can see exactly what are my different components, and I can inspect there all the attributes there is for each of these things. So with that, and with the wheel, mouse wheel, I can actually go in the hierarchy and go up and down to see go from the screen to the window to this specific component to quickly see the hierarchy and what's going on here. And I can change things in real time. So for instance, here my button, let's say usually it's better when you have two screens. But if I say my default age for a button is no longer 30, it's 60, and I save here, you get usually, if it's configured correctly, which I'm not sure it is, it should reload in real time. I should have checked on this computer. Let's try to see if it's not set somewhere else. Yeah, so I try again. Yeah, it doesn't. Maybe it's on other component, maybe? Maybe it's disabled on this computer. Usually it's like reload is enabled, but I don't know why. Okay, but usually when you change the CSS, it recompiles the CSS file, and it will automatically reload these things, allow you to interactly interchanging all your UI in real time while the game is running. So it's really nice when you want to deal with all the different UI screens. You can have designers also be able to work on it. Once the developer have set up the whole thing, you can have designers changing all the little things, you know, the spacings and reorganize a bit things. We don't have yet a live reload from the actual structure. So here, the structure, if you want to change this, you need to recompile, because there is a lot of Xcode inside it. You can see here, you have Xcode. We have foreign. You can have a click bindings. You can have also ifs and for and for loops at the top. So you have a lot of code involved. So we don't allow yet a full. You can inject these kind of things into the code and go between the codes, and then you go foreign, and then you create elements, and here you put some Xcode again. So it's really like a DSL, like the domain-specific language that you inject into your source to get your components running. And that's pretty much what we do for UI. And and CastleDB, I show you already like what you can do with this. And CastleDB also, once you have set up your structure in your database, created your database, the only thing you need to be able to actually have all the structures imported into your code is one single line, because it will read the structure, so all the fields you've been defined, all the types you've been created, all the sheets you've been created, and we define all the types and all the accessors for your type. So basically you can, if you modify some fields here and they are referenced into the code, then we stop compiling and then you can fix things. One other component we are using is AScript. AScript is a scripting language that uses Haxe syntax. So you can actually write it just the way you write something else. But it can, by default, is dynamically typed. So you just write it and you execute at runtime. But you can have a type checker, like I was saying, like we had on CastleDB, but it's optional. So by default, this when you write Apps script, if you create a new thing here and you say it's a script, then it won't be here. For instance, the script by default, if you create a script type in CastleDB, it won't be dynamically typed. It will be dynamically typed, but then you can actually configure it by editing the res prop JSON here and saying I want my script on the CDB skill have these globals, this context API, these events, access to these CDB enums, and then you give it basically the type context it needs. And of course, you need to create an API XML for these types, which are actually types which are written in Haxe. So you need to give it an XML to look these types and have all the functions and all the variables, and it's consuming this XML. And the XML can be extracted by compiling Haxe with a -XML output, which you use for documentation generation. And so CastleDB, once you have this, it's pretty much quite powerful. And Hash script can be used either with dynamic typing or with static typing, but it still executes dynamically typed. So static typing is just a way to kind of check the program validation before running it. Doesn't involve in terms of performance. But the nice things you can do, and we do that for some of our games, is that we are allowing the player, like the game designers, to modify the script. But still, when we compile, we generate, since it's statically typed, we generate the Xcode and we compile it. And so in CDB we have exactly the same code that was compiled, then we use a compiled version. But if it's what changed since the last time, we use dynamic version. So it allows us to get both of these worlds. And here we are also like a way to create async code. Basically, it allows us to write asynchronous kind of coroutine code in scripts, and by transforming the code in continuation machine style, which making very big and less easy to debug. But still, it allows us to do things such as asynchronous code. For instance, for our skill system here, we can see not element but skill. We can see that the implementation of the skill will not be like really synchronous. We can be, let's say, some skills, some of them here, on skill play. Yeah, we will spawn an FX and we get some points. So we have a lot of things that can happen either at the same time, or something that can several attacks that can be done that requires to wait until the previous action has finished until it does the next one. So it allows to do both synchronous and asynchronous. And I think this is pretty nice. Then the last part of one of the two last parts of the framework is HXBit. HXBit is a serialization framework. So basically what you do is you want to, let's say you have a single player game and you simply want to, and you have all this content, creating all these classes, creating content and etc. And you want to save the data for it. Let's say an item, for instance. So an item, it's a state, and you have this kind, that item kind, which is a type of item as a string from CDB. Then you have some flags about is it stolen, does it have some slots, and then you have, so these things you want to save. These are just things you don't need to save in your save game. So what we allows you to do is you create arrobas, comma dots, and it gives you this serialization on this property. So it will allow you to serialize this class, and then when you inserialize it, it will just populate these fields again. So it's a way to automatize entirely serialization, but only on the fields you want. So that's pretty much what there is to know. it's very nice when you want to be able to store some data on a complex objects. Of course, you need to take care of once the objects are loaded. You have all these items and all these different. Of course, it can be relations between objects. Let's say you have a player, like a player maybe. Player will have a lot of things, arrays and maps and an inventory and flags. So you can have a lot of things in player that are serialized, of course, much more than other things. And once you have all these things serialized, the nice thing is that you can add and remove fields, and when you load the data, it will remove the fields that were already added. So it has some kind of backward and forward compatibility, because it stores some schema into the data you serialize, and so it allows you to really keep your data safe over the long term, not breaking every time you make a change. And also one of the second and last thing about HXBit features is we are using the same serialization to do networking. So basically, once you have all this data and all these serialized things, you want to synchronize all your objects between multiple computers in case of networking. Could be between different players if you're playing peer-to-peer, or could be between one server and several players if you're playing in a host thing. So basically what it does is that for every property that is serializable, it will also, if you implement, instead of implementing serializable, but you're using network serializable, which is, I think it's in part of HXBit here. HXBit. So you have serializable, which is an interface that pretty much gives you this kind of thing, serialized and unserialized function, and gives you also a unique ID for your objects, so it can be referenced like in circles. And you have also network serializable, which replace serializable, and which gives you much more things, and allows you to create synchronization between objects. So what Serializable does is that every time a property is modified, so a serialized property is defined. So let's say this one. Let's say this one. Every time, for instance, we go to pre-end inventory. Well, it's not the best thing to do, but let's say we modify these flags. It will set a bit at part of the bits of the class player, saying this property has been defined, has been modified. And once per frame, or once on a regular basis, you can flush all this change and say, okay, I want all these changes that I made on this player or on this server to be sent to other computers. So what will we do? It will we look at all the classes that have been modified, that have one of the properties being modified, and we'll send only the properties that have been modified, so ones that have been tagged as a change. And it will serialize them on the network and send them to the other, and the other will be able to receive them and update their objects accordingly. So this is the way to really change properties. But of course, it can be nice for automatically synchronized data, but sometimes you want to do much more. You want to do a RPC. So RPC is a remote procedure call. So basically what it does, it's like when you call these methods, then it will behave differently. If you are a server, if you are not a server, but what we call host or authoritative, if you have authoritative, so if you have the power to change things as part of the game, then it will execute immediately, and then also forward the call to all the other computers that are connected together. So basically, everyone calls the function. So, but if you are not authoritative, then it will forward first the function on the server, and then the server will execute it and send it to everyone else. So it allows us to guarantee execution order. That's if one player calls something, then it has to go through the server first. And we have also different kind of RPC. This is traditional RPC. We are RPC owner. RPC owner means that this call, when it's made on the server, we only be called as the owner of the object. And the owner of the object can be defined in a custom basis. So you can define always, it can be several owners of a single object also. So it allows you to tell which player owns the object, so which player should be the destination of these things. And we have LPC server, which is also it is called from the client to the server. So if the server calls it, it's just called immediately. But if the client calls it, it's called on the server. It's forward on the server. So the arguments are serialized and sent all server, and it gets executed on the server. And if we do not do anything else, other client doesn't know about it. It's just the server that processes it. And a lot of different things. So basically, you can actually create your own game or anything kind of application using these few things. And HXBit is entirely independent from IPS also, and actually independent from any engine. So you could integrate it into your own engine if you want. It's not something difficult. And so this is the way we do for all our multiplayer for synchronizing our objects multiplayer. So it works well together. And the last one is MPman. MPman is the only part that is closed source actually. It's built on top of HXBit. But it's our own infrastructure for networking, including authentication across platforms, lobby system, rankings, game server instance, multiplayer invitations, achievements, DLC, storage. A lot of things which are platform specific and which is closed source because it requires sometimes some platform specific. And all these other libraries, they are pretty much designed to be customized and they can be used in many different cases. This one is mostly designed to be used for our own system. It's not really something that can be customized or changed for your own things. It's really our own infrastructure. Yep, and that's it for me. So I guess there will be some questions. Maybe.
Thank you very much. I actually have a question.
Yeah, sure.
About everything, basically.
Yeah.
So I've always wondered how real game developers do this. You've shown this in CastleDB, these skill scripts.
Yeah.
How does that interact with animations?
With animations?
Yeah, because I imagine we talked about fireballs. If I do some fireball thing, we need some timing stuff.
Yeah. So basically, Wartail it's easy because it's a turn-based strategy game. So basically, when you launch a skill, we are waiting for the skill to finish until you can skip to the next action. Mm-hmm. So it's really easy to script skills in. And then once we do is we call something called let's go back here. For instance, we call something called spawnVFX or something. SpawnFX here. And the fx is actually already, I think from this, we don't have way to bind the fx. So we do a one fx and based on the ID, we will know where to look for the xfix, I guess. I think it could be in prefabs, fx, I think it was kill, fight. Yep. Fight and yeah. Attack. Is it prep duel? There's several of them. I have to look which they have been refactoring, but yeah, you have very different things. And then let's say we resolve the fx based on the name automatically, so we don't have to bind it by hand. And then it will just show these kind of things when we have all the fx here, with the curves and everything, and we attach it. To the character.
Okay, and how does it know when it's done? Like when the animation?
Oh yeah, because it's not repeating. We have the script. We have the duration here, which is set. So
okay, so basically the script waits till the animation is finished.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean the continuation. Yeah, can be the animation. Can be it's not the animation. The fx itself.
Yeah. Of course.
So fx has a length, and so yeah.
Okay.
So, and we also we are playing the animation automatically. Based on the skill, because we know it's a skill, so we have this animation system. On Wartail we use a lot of like ad hoc binding when we don't have to redefine for every skill the animation and the FX name. But you could do this kind of things if you want, depending on the way we have a very specific animation for each for most of the skills and FX as well. So we are not doing like so much of manual bindings. We do by names, but.
Was the question? Did you put a question?
Yeah, maybe we will start with the questions.
I guess we transition into the Q&A now and start with questions specific to this topic.
Yeah. So someone asked if there was any plan for Vulkan or Metal or Eclipse.
Oh, actually, yeah, kind of. I recently started working on Vulkan for Ashlink, and it was a mess. Because it's a very complex API. At some point, I work on DirectX 12, which is quite complex as well, but maybe not as complex. But still, I was able to figure it out. And so we have working DirectX 12 right now as part of IPS, and we have Waters running in DirectX 12, for instance. And then right now I'm working on my spare time on WebGPU, which is also the same kind of API, quite a high-level API. So I guess Vulkan will be the next one. And I think there's some actually, I mean, it's not that difficult to port to a new API. I mean, this kind of API is a big, because they have a lot of definitions. But once we have WebGPU, I think there's some actually implementation of WebGPU on terms of Vulkan or this kind of thing. So there might be ways to do that, yeah. But it's not my priority right now, but I'm working on adding new APIs as we go, yeah.
Also, how much of what you did a demo of in IDE about the 3D view was actually public, and how much was from private plugins?
You mean like which one? The demo from IDE?
Yeah, from the world view.
The world view. Oh, this is entirely public.
Yeah.
And there's nothing like here. There was nothing not public. Yeah. The only thing not public I show you today, I mean, apart from the assets themselves, of course, but all of this I show you today is open source. There's nothing closed source. What might be not open source will be like, of course, some of the post process we use for the rendering, because we have this big, when we start a new IDE, let's say, let's go back to our test thing here. I can create a new prefab here. So we are not in Waters anymore. So and we connect text prefab. And here I have my scene, and I can do a new 3D box. No, 3D, not Battledecal. A new 3D box, and I can move it around and do these kind of things. Of course, if I want to put more complex things, I have to have FBX or this kind of things. But I can change the scaling. I can do pretty much everything. I can create lights. I can create different things.
Yeah. Someone wanted to know how to use CastleDB database data from within the game, from the code. How do you actually?
How do you access CastleDB from within the game? Yeah, that's pretty much simple. Like I say, you have a single line when you create, when you actually import your CDB, and then once you have done that, you can do. Let's say I'm here in the code. I can do data dot, and it show.
It's still in the debugger.
I'm still in the debugger. Yeah, that's true. I'm not sure if I'm getting right. Yeah, here I have. I don't know why they are twice. Maybe I typed it twice. So here I have data.bonus, and I can do .get. So I get with my ID. So right now I don't know. This is a bonus kind. So I'm looking at that bonus. Let's go back to Waters. CDB. Well, let's put null for now, because I don't have an identifier. But let's say I have an identifier, and then here I have all the description. Why is there twice the thing? I need to restart the language server maybe. or is it the recent bug? No.
No,
So I have.
twice the top tip, the over request.
Yeah.
Maybe
So
it was so good that it had to be shown twice.
yeah. So dot props dot dot attributes, and from the attributes I can access the description. So and if you look at this, so bonus and props attribute desk animal. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to read the bonus. What is bonus again?
Shouldn't you get top level
bonus.
completion for it?
Huh?
Shouldn't you get top level completion in place of the null? Shouldn't it know the expected type and suggest something to you?
Oh, here, yeah. They should be here because my bonus can be anything of this. Can be an
Yeah, so it should
anything
know.
of this, yeah.
It should suggest. something.
Yeah. If I want to,
That's signature completion.
Yeah, the signature completion, but not the top. Yeah, the not the identifier. Usually, it should be like willpower or like this, And so here, and so I have all access to the structure here. So I have props attributes, and my attribute is here, and I can access all the structures this way. And that's all you need to do. You don't use one single line to initialize and to load your database into your to initialize it, and then you can browse this. So you have function to get, and you have function to get all for in data item all. Then I can get all the item names, for instance, or like this, okay? Or item dots, all the things that are items. Yeah, I don't know why it's showing twice, but yeah. Yep.
So you're using less for CSS, but could you be using SAS? Or
Anything, because what DomKit consumes is a CSS file. So you can use anything you want to output a CSS file, and then in the end it only consumes CSS.
There were some questions for Tom that you could answer, I think.
Maybe.
I think.
I don't know.
No, I think
why
Simon did most of those. Right?
Excuse me?
It's okay.
Why are Ashlink SDL bindings so different from SDL itself? Someone wanted to ask to use Ashel SDL, but it doesn't have the same methods as the C++ SDL.
Yeah. What we did, what we are doing is to have. We're not trying to have the full SDL library wrapped. We are just using SDL basically to create a window, and we're running OpenGL inside it, and everything else we are doing with OpenGL. So we don't use. We have bindings for SDL that contains let's say Ashlink. Source libs SDL. So we have actually our SDL bindings are really small. We basically mostly like we don't bind the whole SDL API, so we can be used from Haxe. It's mostly a window that we create to get what we need. But you can get this. You can, if you want to rewrite SDL bindings. Writing Ashel binding is not really hard. You just do like wrap the methods and call them and expose them to the C, and then you write the Haxe parts that allows you to access these methods. So here, for instance, we have this window set window grab. It takes SWL window and it calls this SDL set window grab, and then we have this in the Haxe code window set window grab. I guess it should be here. Yeah, set grab, and that it's called set window grab. And window grab is declared a static function. So, and because it's Ashel native here at the beginning of the class, we have this Ashel native SDL. So every function that doesn't have an implementation is actually a function that is a reference native code.
That brings me to a question that was asked on the previous community questions we had.
Yeah.
About Ashlink libraries that could be separated from the Ashlink compilation itself, like the HDL files. At the moment, we need to bundle all that together. We need to compile the HDL files when we compile Ashlink, and some people want to create their own HDL file and use it with current Ashlink.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, I understand the question because Ashlink can be compiled without any HDL files, and then what exactly what?
Like compiling an HDL file that would work with several versions of Ashlink.
Oh yeah. Well, usually it's possible as long as the API that the HDL file use in Ashlink virtual machine doesn't change. If you're using some APIs that have changed, or if the structures from the data from the values have changed because there's been major change, then you need to recompile your HDL. So if in general it doesn't change much, but sometimes it does change, and then if your HDL might crash more recent of Ashlink. So you don't have to recompile every time, but it's better to just in case. But it's not random crashes. It will be 100% reproducible. So.
I don't remember exactly the context when it was during Tom's talk. It was what about deterministic memory management? It was like being able to use new delayed pair semantics like C++.
Yeah, actually, we don't have this completely yet, but it's we have ways to that. Actually, new is not much a problem. The problem is more about is it safe? So, for instance, our C array we have one that someone introduced that allow you to allocate like 100 or 1,000 of objects of the same type, which are like stick together in memory. Then you look at one array, and then you can access each object, and the object can move through the code and be used in the code. But once you want, you can actually not freeze the memory, but you can actually stop referencing the array, so it will be gone at the next garbage collection. And all these objects that are referenced in the code, in case they are still in use, they will be pointing to memories that have been either reclaimed or used by something else. So it's a way you have fine control over the memory allocation in Ashlink if you want. And some of those things that can be not garbage collected, and you can actually use C code to also allocate memory on C and return it to Ashlink and use it in Ashlink without having to do manual. You can do manual allocation, but we don't have yet a way to say, let's say I want to allocate this object manually and delete it manually. We don't have yet. That could be added, but again, I'm not sure exactly because we don't have all the C++ features that goes with this feature that allows you to do this kind of scoping, auto deletion, and auto pointer, and all the things that are required if you want to do manual memory management.
Okay. I don't know if it's specific to a game, but how many players can be supported on the server simultaneously in multiplayer mode by Ashlink?
There's no really limits. I mean, it really depends what you're doing. For instance, on Northgard, we have up to I think 8 players playing, and we could have like hundreds or thousands maybe. It won't be a problem. It really depends what you're doing, on which server you're running it, and yeah. I mean, the GC itself is not a problem, like I say. I mean, it's not a problem on Unity or like in Java. I mean, it's the same problem you're having on most of these platforms. Is that you have to deal with memory one way or another. If you manage memory, if you are on manual memory, you have to deal with leaks and all those kind of things. If you're on managed memory or GC memory, you have to also to be able to deal with this. There's always problem with memory, and it's basically you have to deal with it some way or another.
So HXBit doesn't have such limitations?
No, there's no limitations here.
So are there any plans for HLGC to become generational or something? Do
Well,
you want to work on that?
The problem is that it comes at a cost,
It does, yeah.
Yeah, it comes at a cost at runtime.
It does.
Yeah, so right now we actually in 1.13 we really improve a lot the allocation time. There was a lot of issues with the way we were doing before. So right now, I will say it's very fast, the allocation time. And the only slow time is, it's kind of slow. There's two scenarios. There's the scenario when you allocate a lot of small objects with short life, and then in this case, the JavaScript GC, for instance, will beat the Ashling GC because you allocate and in JavaScript you will allocate and reuse the same memory because you have this generation seals when you allocate a lot of things and you reuse the same memory, and so like a compiler, when you do a lot of maps and so Ashling GC has not been designed for this kind of usage, definitely, and because we don't have much of this. Actually, a lot of allocation over a small time because the code we write for games is actually it's more like a code that runs every frame, so we don't want to allocate a lot of things anyway because it's always better not to allocate them or to so in the end the generational aspect, we don't want to have, for instance, a GC that is very fast most of the time, but sometimes is very slow because that's what generational GC are. At some point, they need to scale the whole generation and to scale the whole thing, and that will make you like at some point a big slowdown on a big frame drop can be even slower than what we have right now. So we prefer to have always the same cost from a GC, then have fast costs most of the time, and then sometimes slower costs.
Yeah, but you can't really argue about the general usefulness of generational GC.
In general, for many applications.
For games as well.
I'm not sure about it, to be honest, because the scanning of the GC right now, the way it's done, it could be improved by adding, for instance, multi-threading, which we don't do yet. But having the barriers for all the access, it's quite expensive. So it's a trade-off, And once you have, if you want to your frame to be able to sustain actual garbage collection, then you need to be smart about the way you actually manage your whole CPU budget.
Yeah, I agree. You shouldn't waste memory.
To be sure. No, what would be nice would be like a concurrent GC when you could actually scan and be able to reclaim the memory in a separate thread from the thread that actually allocates it. Concurrent GC would be the good way to do it for Ashling.
Yeah, but I suppose that's even more difficult than generation.
Yeah. It's more difficult. Yeah, of course. Yeah. This is a way we could improve things here. Generational is maybe not the best for solution. It could be a solution from some applications, but if you want for the kind of content we are building, I think the better solution will be like the ultimate solution will be like concurrent GC.
Okay.
So about Ashling GC, are there been some work on it recently?
Yeah. In 1.13 we improved things a lot regarding GC, regarding a lot of things, and we have games again. Some people say it's slow, but it's slow in some. It shows some bad behaviors in some micro samples, micro benchmark. Like I say, regarding generational. But if you want to run it into an actual game, it's actually run very good. We are using for games, and we have really massive games with a lot of content, and we don't have much problem with GC. Normal problems that you're having with GC, with any GC being on Unity or non-Java or any kind of VM that does managed connection. So.
And Aurel is wondering about his Emacs GC.
Yeah, it still doesn't work on Windows. So once he's fixed that, we can look at it.
There was a more generic Haxe question for you. What would you want to see in Haxe that hasn't already been discussed, like silent relative?
Actually, I'm quite satisfied with the way it is right now. There's a few things actually I wanted, and there was I think they were addressed recently, like the static local variables. We were talking about it. My current focus is more on the infrastructure itself. So. Having a much faster completion, much faster compilation, because we are on a really big code base, and while it works well, it could be improved. Yeah, it could be much better. So I think we have a lot of our main focus should be on that as Tech Foundation for larger code base, and I mean, apart from what you're doing already, for instance, it's recently is work on the tooling aspects, and also language-wise, yeah, I agree with what Simon was presenting. As asynchronous coroutines is also really nice to have it directly into the language instead of while we are using, like Tom was showing, we can use. There's always a solution with macros, but at some point maybe having something like directly into the language is better.
So some questions that were from the beginning. So what about new safety? Will there be some improvements to the future, and could we have new safety as default?
Yeah, the problem is that this was one of Alex's things, and he worked on it a lot. And he's the only one who really knows how it works, so that's the usual problem. There's a big part of the compiler which a specific person built and understands. So I'm not sure. I guess somebody should pick it up because it can be useful. As for making it the default, maybe first of all we would have to deal with a standard library because that is not safe either. So
yeah, I think that's a whole different thing. Yeah. What I agree is really nice to have it as a feature, and people can activate the feature. Like having it the default is a bit more like a. I mean, I'm sure that will piss a lot of people, and I'm sure it will. Now, I mean, if you want to use it, you can activate it by default, and then you're satisfied.
Yeah.
But then, of course, it has the whole things about libraries, and yeah, I mean, it's a different philosophy about language, and I agree that the neural access is annoying and everything, but it also allows to build code more efficiently, I guess, more quickly. In most of the case, at the expense of some neural access you might have later. And again, depending on what error reporting you get. For instance, on our games we get a full stack access and full like every exception that happens on anyone's computer, like any player computer, we get a record of that. And so we can fix the new access pretty fast once it's happened. Sometimes, most of the time during the beta test, sometimes during live play, and then so it's not a big concern for us for kind of usage we're making, and having to because with null access the problem is that if you give the developers they will bypass the feature, they will start doing code that doesn't fail, but actually doesn't kind of silently fail because they don't want to handle the case when it's null, and then you get even worse difficult to debug things because you have code silently failing. Like I used to do Flash, and in Flash, in the early Flash things, when you were accessing something that null undefined, it will just don't do an exception. It will just return undefined. So accessing an undefined field will just return undefined. So you will have undefined popping at some point in some very late place of your UI, and you have to trace back to the original null access that was. So so I think it's not really easy. It's not like a strict win. I really appreciate the thing in OCaml, for instance, for the kind of applications like a compiler when there's a few actual null things. But for the kind of application we're making, for example, for games, I think there's a lot of undefined things because it's a complex application where things are changing. A lot of things are changing. So there have to be a lot of things that are not defined at some point. And so when the null is more the exception, is more the rules than the exceptions, and having not null access not null check by default is null safety by default is better.
About dropping optional arguments, what about named arguments to be able to handle all the optional arguments?
Oh, you mean like the name, the column, and the...
Yeah, what syntax?
I don't think we need more syntax in that regard.
Yeah,
that's all I can say about that.
Yeah, I think having proper overloading, since we have already half of it,
Yeah.
I think finishing the overloading things and having it work in most of the case, including maybe runtime for the easy case, would allow us to remove the optional argument thing.
Yeah, I think so.
But it requires going actually finishing the overload thing.
Yeah, I mean the only thing that isn't working is that it doesn't have runtime support, and
Yeah.
that's a pretty big thing. And
It's
the only problem with that is the naming stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we have to mangle it and to be able to create a runtime dispatch. But, especially for you want to use in scripting or things when
and then you have type parameters and stuff, and it gets quite difficult. Because
I agree. We need some kind of some mangling. Mangling with with MD5 or something, but yeah.
And there were some people that were a bit worried about the target being dropped.
It's just segment selection. He didn't even.
It's just marketing.
He even didn't consult BB for that.
It's like they started the funeral straight away, and he said, "This is just an opinion," and people were like, "Rip."
No, again, I think we should consult with the community before doing these kind of moves. It's like there's a lot of different usage for Haxe, and I think it's important.
Yeah, I know. I'm not going to randomly delete the
we did remove some targets in the past. We removed the flash target, for instance, that was no longer relevant for development, and some people were still using it. And but it doesn't mean that they can't use Haxe. It's just have to keep it to the older Haxe version.
Yeah.
And, it's a tough decision, but we will look into the community feedback and see what's the status. Also, maybe for instance for Java, we still have the JVM target. So if we at some point we remove Java source code, we will have all the Java users using JVM and report us more bugs, and then we can fix them and get into a better shape than we are right now with the Java output. C# is another story, but
there's currently an effort being made to have some kind of generator framework written in Haxe, so you can write your own generators basically. And we've always had that to an extent. We had this custom JS generator thing, which kind of people abuse it actually to write other kinds of generators. And if we find a good way to generalize that so that people can write their own targets in Haxe, then maybe that would be a good way to transition away from hard-coded targets in the compiler directly. I'm not sure yet, but it's definitely something we should discuss.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that was.
Regarding the current overloading, you need to also specify a few extra qualifiers. Oh yeah, the modifier, big for modifier chains. Yeah, at the moment it's quite difficult. So I don't think we should imply it, because you're supposed to have at some point overloads that aren't external inline. That's the whole idea, to have really proper overload support, like in Java, for instance. So we shouldn't apply any modifiers. The problem is just at the moment you can only use overload on targets that don't natively support it with external and inline, because only in that case we can be sure there's no runtime. And that's not ideal, but for the time being,
Speak to them.
I shouldn't speak to
Speak
the
to the
across the microphone, but I suppose it's picking up.
Okay, wrap it up.
Do we have more questions?
I think that was it.
Yeah.
So, okay then. Thank you very much for watching. I'm not sure when. The microphone is going to pick it up.
No, the camera is over here.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much for watching. We're not sure when we will be back with the next event. I'm surprised nobody asked that, because usually somebody always does that. But there will be more events.
They did ask on Discord.
Oh, they asked on Discord, We're not sure yet. There probably won't be a bigger Haxe event this year, but there might be something next year. It always depends on who wants to organize it and where.
If someone wants to do one, go ahead.
Yeah, if someone feels like we should have a Haxe event in my house or something, then let us know. But other than that, we'll see. And with that, thank you everyone. And
bye, chat.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
6.